So in my first video on functions, I didn't really show you a very good example of why we like functions. In other words, the code that we wrote, we wrote all this code, and we could have done exactly the same thing just by writing this one line of code. We didn't need all the extra code. So you must be wondering, well, what is the benefit of functions? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me to have to write multiple lines of code to do what you could with just one line of code. And it turns out that that's exactly kind of the reason why we like functions, is because you can write a function one time to do and then you can use it again and again and again. So it actually does save you time in the long run, and it also helps to prevent errors. So let me show you what I mean. It'd be great if you could go in to Sandbox and then go ahead and click on new, or actually if you go into, you'll probably be in here untitled anyways, and let's go to hashtag space functions2. And I'll give you some example of why we might want to use a function to make our life simpler, not harder. So let's go ahead and define a new function, def space, and we'll call it draw circles. Let's see here. I could do it with stars or lines or labels or something like that. Would that make it more interesting for you? Labels. I'm going to stick with circles for now. So let's go draw circles, and we're going to take in more than one parameter this time. This time we're going to take in an x, comma, and a y, comma, and a color. And now we should have slightly better reasons. You know what? Yeah, maybe we'll also throw in a radius. There we go. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to define some circles. And oh, by the way, notice that when I hit enter after the colon, I automatically get an indent. Remember what I said in the last video. Oh, by the way, before we go any further, let's go ahead and save this file as functions2 so that you can always get back to it later on. Let's see here, and functions2. Circle. This time, instead of providing instead of providing the x coordinate and the y coordinate, what we're going to do, and by the way, I'm going to bring this over here. What we're going to do is we are going to use the parameters that are part of our function definition as the x coordinate and the y coordinate for the circle. So I'm going to say circle x comma y comma, and we'll also use the radius. And I don't know if you remember, but with circles, the first three numbers are center x, center y, and radius. If we go to docs plus colors, and you should be going to docs plus colors, it's help, it's great, and we type circle, you can see that the first three numbers are supposed to be center x, center y, and radius. So we can just throw those in there. And then, of course, if you need to see an example of how that works, you can go ahead and there is an example with three numbers, and the first number center x, second number center y, third number is the radius. If we hit run, we should get a circle over here. There we go. We got a. Oh, and by the way, we did not have to specify fill because the default fill color is black for circles. Okay, anyways, back to the coding we're doing. Now we're also going to say fill equals color. And then what I want to do is I want to copy that because I want to do several circles. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my cursor back to the very beginning of that line. Hold the shift key down. You should be doing this. As soon as I stop, you're going to do the same thing. Hold the shift key down, hit the down arrow one time, and now you can see that entire line is highlighted. And by the way, I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter right here. And then I'm going to go shift down arrow. And now what happens is I can copy that entire line, including the enter key. So I'm going to now go Control C, and that should copy the entire line. And now if I hit down arrow and then backspace and then Control V to paste, now I can get I can paste what I just copied. And I'll do that again. I'll go Control V again because it's still copied. And now you can see this is a really easy way if I wanted to make a bunch of lines of code that are very similar. In fact, I'm going to do it a few more times just to demonstrate the concept. Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V. Way more efficient than writing all those lines of code by themselves. Now, we're only going to end up with 3 circles. But I do want the 3 circles to be in slightly different positions. Well, I'll demonstrate with them in the same position, and you'll see what the problem is. So let's go ahead and call this function. We'll do draw circles, and then we'll put in, let's do 100, comma 100. That's right about somewhere around here is 100. Right about here is 100, 100. And, ooh, can I show you that? Dang it. I think I'm having a problem showing you that. Down here, oh, there we go. At the very bottom of the screen on the right corner, you can see the X and the Y. And if I put my mouse at about 100, 100, you can see the X. You can see that that's the case down there. Anyways, 100, comma 100, comma, let's do a radius of 30, and let's do a color of blue. And right away, you're going to see that there's a problem when I hit run. Is that it only looks like there's 1 circle. And why is that? Well, it's because they're all being drawn right on top of each other. So let's go ahead and change the X value by adding something to it. For the second circle, I'm going to make it X plus 50. And for the third circle, I'm going to make it Y plus 50. And then we're going to go ahead and hit run now. And by doing that, now I can see that I've drawn 3 circles. Yay, so exciting. Now, it'd be a little cooler if I could make them all different colors, but unfortunately, I'm kind of stuck with color, color, color. Now, if I wanted to add, I could have multiple colors here. I could say color 1, comma, color 2, comma, color 3, and now I could go, and now these guys could be unique colors. The only problem is now every time I do a function call, I'm going to have to specify all 3 colors. But let's see what happens, just for the heck of it. I'm going to go ahead and hit run. And sure enough, yay, it's working. Fun. Okay, now, I encourage you to pause the video and play around with some of the stuff that I've just done. Try it out for yourself. Maybe you're curious about something. Maybe you have a question about something that I did. One of the best ways to learn about programming is to try things for yourself. And it doesn't matter whether what you try works or whether it doesn't work. You learn from both getting things right and from making mistakes, both. So pause the video for a minute and play around and change things around. And if you have questions, call me over so that I can help you figure out what's going on. And if I'm busy, take a moment and write down the question and make sure that you ask me the question sometime soon. Okay? All right. So what else? Let's get back to just having, I kind of, I think we're just going to go with the 1 color because I want to do a bunch of stuff here. Now, what we can do is we can hard code the color on 2 of these. And we'll just make the middle one have a color that we can pass in via the parameter called color. So let's go ahead and now we'll be passing in the X, the Y, the radius, and the color. And if I go ahead, let's change that from blue to black so you can see what happens. Here we go, run. And you can see now, by the way, you'll notice that the black one is not the middle circle, and that has to do with the X, Y, the center X and center Y's that I chose for these guys. Anyways, it's good for now. Well, finally, after 9 minutes of me talking, we get to me showing you the real benefit of functions, okay? See, what I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to draw these things all over the place, but I don't want to have to keep writing all these lines of code. And so what I can do is I can just keep calling this function again and again and again. Remember, by the way, this up here is the function definition. This is the body of the function. All those lines must be indented to be part of the body of the function. And this guy is known as a function call. Now, if I copy that and then paste, and I do that again and again and again, now I can get these guys all over the screen. And one way I can do that is I can change around these numbers. So instead of 100, 100, let's do 100. Let's do a 150 there. And we'll do a 150. These don't have to be the same numbers. Let's do a 200 here, something like that. And then let's do a 100 here and a 200 here. And let's do a 200 here and a 150 there and a 200 here and a 100 there. And then the other thing I can do is I can change the radiuses. So let's make this like 20 and this 10 and this 40 and this 50. And of course we want to change the color of that one circle. Remember, we're only changing the one circle. So I'm going to try something like pink and purple. And I think they can do something like gray, and I can't remember whether it's spelled G-R-A-Y or G-R-E-Y. And maybe we'll throw in another circle. Oh, what the heck, let's throw in a white one. Even though we won't be able to see all of it, we'll be able to see a chunk of it. And then go ahead and hit run. And now I'm beginning to be able to use this function for drawing as though it is a stamp. Okay, now anytime I call that function, I take all the things that are in it, all three circles, and I draw them all at once as though I was just stamping them in place. And then by calling the function again and again, I can stamp it here or there or there or there or there. I can stamp it all over the place, and that's what you're seeing here. Okay, so I was telling you that the real reason I wanted to make this video was to try to give you a sales pitch about the benefits of using functions, and so the thing that I'm trying to tell you is that we like using functions because after you write all the lines of code in the function, you can call that function again and again and again without having to write all those lines of code individually. All we have to do is pass it some parameters. And by the way, you can have as few parameters as 0, and I think you can have almost as many parameters as you want. But here you can see we have 4 parameters. Or I'm sorry, these are the 4 arguments. Here's the 4 parameters right here. My 4 parameters are x, y, radius, and color. Those are the variables that I can use throughout my code in the function. And these guys are my arguments. And the value of each of these guys gets passed into each of these parameters. And then we can use the parameters like variables to change the way the shapes are drawn in the code. Okay, whew, that's a lot. Again, I strongly recommend that you pause the video, think about what I'm saying, try to write the code yourself, experiment around with it, change the code around, call me over if you have questions. And if you do those things, you will develop a strong understanding of what's going on. And if you don't do those things, you will be struggling for weeks to come, if not months. And I have to tell you this, I don't want you to struggle. I want you to feel strong, and I want you to feel confident. So put the time in to figure out what's going on.